All right, welcome to our Natural Healing Study Group. Today is the 4th of May, and may the 4th be with you. I'm going to say that. Can always say it on this one day of the year. May the 4th be with you. I think that's so cute. Anyway, hope everybody's doing good, and today we'd like to discuss some more on vibrational medicine, vibrational healing, vibration itself, and we're Robert and Carrie BROE. And we have been into the natural healing realm for probably close to 35 years now. And we have been in a lot of different areas of this field. I think that's maybe our strong point, is that we are wide and deep as well, because we have two of us and we're pretty congruent in a lot of areas. And we both have our own areas of expertise, but we have a lot of areas that overlap. And I guess I would say we're trying to bridge a lot of areas, and I'm proud to say that we're unconventional in our approach, because the more I go down this rabbit hole and see the whole picture and how the world is set up and how things are, I see that everything, and it's like that movie, The Matrix. It's, everything is almost upside down and wrong, and you have to just start questioning everything, and you'll find that there's truth in all these different fields. And I'm very proud to say that we've had to go down a very unique path to find the information that we have attained, but by doing so we haven't sold out or sucked up to things that we don't want to be. We don't have to pay homage to big corporations that won't allow us to say the truth. We don't have to fork out money to be validated from some source that is non-integrous. And that allows us to keep learning and to keep getting to the truth and to keep sharing this with people like we are now, with our daily patients that we see, with the consultations that we do with people, and with all the teaching material that we're working on doing more and more. So it brings us, an easier time to bring you the truth, not having to jump through somebody else's hoop. So I hope that that's appreciated, and I just kind of wanted to state that on the record, and that we appreciate you all being here and being a part of our world, because all we really want to do at the end of the day is to bring you truth, and to bring you what we find and try to validate in many ways, research material, talking to other practitioners, working with people, and keeping what works and throwing out what doesn't. So it kind of brings me to talking a little bit more about our topic today, as we want to get back over to the vibrational medicine. And we could talk about this a lot. We probably will talk about it in many different areas and venues. This is a really good topic because we're moving so quickly into vibrational medicine. But what really is it? If you think about it, at the end of the day, everything is vibrating. Everything is a part of vibrational medicine, and some things are vibrating so fast that it's in the airwaves, it's invisible, and the other things are slow enough to have it like a glass of water. And we have to talk about why that makes that water good, and how do we purify it, and how do you charge it, and all that stuff. So that's a different type of vibration. And if we understand that that vibration is connected to everything, that's where we're all connected on that vibratory level. It's like how I'm sitting in this room, Bobby's in a room across the wall there, and you are all out there, but we're somehow connecting, with this whatever vibration that we're on. Some of us are hardwired in, some of us are, through the airwaves in different means, but at the very culmination of that, we're all connected. And that really shows you how spiritually we are, how everything boils down to being spiritually connected. And that's the essence. It's like the beginning and the end of healing. It starts there, and it goes through many, many changes and phases and all kinds of physical parts, and then it goes and it ends there as well. So that being said, I just want to give you 3 little concepts about just healing in general. And I want to get into, Bobby has the second part of the PowerPoint he's compiled a tremendous amount of information he put together that we can see on vibrational healing. But again, everything is a spiritual connection. We're all connected spiritually. We're all on that evolution. And sometimes when it feels like you can't do anything on the outside, you can do a lot on the inside. You can do a lot by putting yourself in a higher place, by making a good decision for yourself, by making a better routine for yourself, making a better person, making higher habits, better flow, because that ultimately is going to lift everybody up. So with that, maintaining hydration is very important. Like I mentioned, water, having a good clean source of water, and then structuring or putting that life source, prayer, the power of the sun, different chargers. You know, I have, you know, some of the ones that the Orgonite that we make. This one is pink aqua aura crystals, and it's got the shungite, you know, things like this that you can charge your water on, charge that so that you're constantly being hydrated, and putting minerals, you know, sea salt, baking soda. So you're taking in the essence of being hydration, because we are a huge amount of water. You know, we vary at the amounts. And then as much as we are sitting in front of monitors and we put our blue blocker filters, and then if it's dark, we're wearing our blue blocker glasses, they're still somewhat dehydrating. So we tend to be harder for us to hydrate. You know, it's harder for us to keep that on, but we have to keep that coming in. So just a thought to stay hydrated, and eat your 3 meals or 3 healthy feedings a day. I know I harp on that on people all the time. We need to have 3 regular feedings. You know, most of the time, you know, there's times that you have a little more, a little less, but the body likes a little regularity. It likes to have breakfast. It likes to make sure that it's not going to be more stressed. And, you know, we're in so many stressors already. If you can have guaranteed fuel, the body likes that. It knows that it's going to be fed and nourished, and then that you're being nurtured and nourished on a really deep level if you have a continuity of meals and have at a similar time, because that ensues, that allows your body to have and accept food, nourishment, nutrition, which is the building blocks of this. You know, after we get on to realize that we're all connected in spirit and how it's all a vibration, we still need to drink quality water, and we still need to eat quality food in a good timing. All right, so those are the big 3 that I kind of wanted to mention before we launched into some nitty gritty. And then I wanted to just bring it to your mind again. It is spring. It's the very beginning, you know, week of May. And to, you know, if you're already in the South, you should be growing already. And you can still start growing things, and you can put things more in shadier sides of your house to, you know, as we get on deeper into the summer when it gets really hot, to help protect the plants a little bit. But more northern areas, you should be using this wonderful time to get your hands into some kind of soil, connecting with the earth, growing in containers, beds, raised beds, grow towers, grow bags. There's no excuse. You can always grow some little thing. And it's, you know, if you're not going to do it to sustain yourself, you should do it to at least connect with the earth itself. Okay, that's my little rant. I'm going to turn it over to Bobby.
All right. So it's interesting that while we're all connected on the internet, right now we're spiritually all connected on the inner net. In the quantum field, we're all connected there also. So that's where I think we're moving toward, where we won't need this interface. We had to use it to let us know that we could connect globally, spiritually, and so it's higher vibration. Again, it's all vibrations and frequency. So last time we were talking about energetic anatomy, and specifically about oxidation reduction when we ended. So we're going to pick up there again. And oxidation reduction reactions are basically electron transfer reactions where molecules that are losing electrons become oxidized. They become positively charged. And those gaining electrons become reduced. So that's what those terms mean when oxidation or ORP, the oxidation reduction potential. You hear that discussed about different substances, and even with water, how much electron charge that water has, which affects the bonding angles of the water and how much it hydrates, how easily it can get through the cell membranes to hydrate inside of our cells and things like that. So electrons, you know, when we ground ourselves, when we use our grounding sheets or straps and we stand on the earth barefoot or lay on the earth, those electrons are coming from the earth into our body. And then once we got those electrons in us, then what happens to them? What process do they perform? And we're going to talk about that as more as we go, but basically it's electron transfer that happens.
Well, that's partly also when you do energy work and you lay on of hands. That's, you know, you're transferring energy,
Right.
electrons into that
Mhm.
person.
Right.
You give somebody fresh squeezed vegetable juice. There's a lot of fresh electrons that'll be going into their cells.
So molecules hold and store these electrical currents at particular voltages. They're very tiny voltages, but they're there nevertheless, and it's all relative. Increasing the number of electrons in voltage is what we call reducing. There's more negative potential, and decreasing number of electrons called oxidation, or pulling electrons back. Some liquid solutions are better electrolytes than others. Think of an electrolyte drink, or think of the water in your car battery. It's an electrolyte solution that allows you to store a charge so you can start your car and have it operate electrically. So the better the electrolyte, the greater the current flow and the larger the resultant magnetic field. Anytime you have a current, electrical current, you're going to have a magnetic field around it as a result. So iron, which is very susceptible to magnetization, is in our blood, and it's carried in our hemoglobin and our red blood cells. That's what the oxygen molecule attaches to, the iron molecule, iron atoms. And so as these travel through the blood, they pass conductors, which are nerve spirals that induce a current when iron passes through a magnetic field or through a conductor. It induces a current in that conductor. So lightning, exchanges of electric energy between the atmosphere and the water and the earth, occurs over 1,000 times a second all over the planet. This sudden rush of electrons through air and into the soil is nature's most intense ion generator. So this is happening constantly on the planet. This is what gives the Schumann resonance 7.83 cycles a second, is all these lightning discharges. So there's a constant transfer of electricity occurring across our cell membranes also. Our electroencephalograph signal of our brain typically has an amplitude of 2 to 100 microvolts and a frequency spectrum from 0.1 to 60 cycles per second, 60 hertz. Most activity occurs within the following frequency bands. The delta range is a half or 0.5 cycles a second to 4 cycles a second. Theta waves are 4 to 8 hertz. alpha waves are 8 to 13, and beta waves 13 to 22 hertz, and then gamma waves are 30 to 40 hertz. These are different brainwave states that our brain experiences. And then these can be worked with our frequency table with binaural beat technology. We can guide the body into a certain brainwave band that's more beneficial for the body than the one that it's in, especially if you're stressed out, things like that. So the human heartbeat and respiration signatures have been measured at ranges exceeding 10 meters from the body using radar vital sign monitors. The electric message is carried along the nerves as a result of changes in the quantities of potassium and sodium salts inside and outside the cell. And this is happening very quickly. It's conducting this signal through our nerves, our wiring, if you will. The effect is like that of a wet battery, where a different solution separated by a semi-permeable membrane give rise to an electric current. An electric difference of 65 to 95 millivolts can be measured across the cell membrane. The electric poles of water molecules attract, attach, and hold other ionic or polar chemicals, and in their constant motions carry them off and disassembling them. Fire burns, but water dissolves. Life's secret is this solution. So the bipolar geometry of water is not only electric, but magnetic as well. The outer electrons of the hydrogen-oxygen bonds are in orbital spin, just like the planets, and moving charge generates a magnetic field. So this little dipole also has a minute magnetic field around it, every water molecule. Minerals provide strong electromagnetic charges to hold organic molecules in tight, stable association. This also boosts water's capacity to conduct electric current. So the minerals really give it the spark. Delicate hydrogen bonds are the same force that holds two amino acids together as in the base pairs between the twin strands of DNA's spiral helix. So it's this bond between these hydrogens. Water's tiny electric dipoles give it remarkable power to dissolve other substances, especially ionic substances, and to hold them in dynamic suspension, floating and fluid mobility. So an ionic substance is one where you have an unbonded substance. Like we talked before about minerals. When they come into the body, they're bonded to proteins. They're chelated, it's called. These proteins are like chaperones ushering these minerals into the body. And they have to be separated from those protein chaperones in your stomach if you have a strong enough hydrochloric acid concentration. So once you separate them, now they're ionic again. They're ready to bond to something. Okay, so that's the ionic substance. And minerals impose a definite geometry and order to water. So the water molecules will bond in these hydration shells. These they're like geodesic spheres. You think of Epcot Center, you know,
The dome.
dome. Think of that as a whole sphere. That's how these molecules bond. Very strong patterns. Okay. So the presence of mineral ions alters the angles of water's lattice, warping and bending the water molecule's organization to accommodate the strong ionic charge. So our bodies are mostly water. This is happening throughout our whole body. Such slight shifts in geometry can alter water's physical properties, such as melting and boiling temperatures and chemical reactivity.
So go back to that one. That structure of the water molecule, that's what we're talking about when you structure your water. You know, putting it on a charger, stirring mega hydrate, you know, the silica hydride into it, praying over it, you know, different ways of changing the actual structure You know, Dr. Emoto's work showed that the praying over water changed the actual structure of it, which you want it more geometrically shaped rather than tight or not, because then the body, it's more organized, it's more orderly, so the body can use it better that way.
So water that's stagnant has a different geometry than moving water. Water that's flowing over a rock, say down a waterfall or a fountain where the water is being sprayed, that changes the angle of the bond within the water and changes the quality of it. Our muscles are driven by long chain molecules which are forced to slide across each other. And the sliding is performed by electrostatic attraction and repulsion between the parts of the molecule. So your muscles are electrostatic motors. The actin and myosin fibers in the muscle, when the charges change, they actually move and slide and do work. And this happens in protein chains also. When you change the charge on it, the shape of the protein changes, and it creates like ion-gated channels, voltage-gated ion channels in cell membranes and things that actually open and close depending on the electrical charge that they have. Nerves function as tiny capacitors with charge pumps to electrify them and ion gates to discharge them. So all of our nerves need electrons to be flowing through them, right? So we can sense with our sensory nerves, and we can make things happen like motor activity through the motor neurons. We can make muscles contract, make our body move how we want it to, and things. But if your electron capacity is low, you don't have the ability, the capability to perform these functions as well. So it's so important to keep our bodies grounded and charged with electrons. All the data in all the computers all over the world are stored as tiny patterns of electrostatic charges. Your liquid crystal components within your cells and extracellular matrix, which is outside the cells, extracellular matrix of your body, possesses many of the features of televisions, computers, and electronic circuits. They're very electrical.
Imagine that.
Components analogous to conductors, semiconductors, resistors, transistors, capacitors, inductor coils, transducers, switches, generators, and batteries exist in you and in all biological tissues. So this is the cell membrane, and it's an organic information processor. A liquid crystal semiconductor with gates and channels, just like on a semiconductor chip in your computer. The cell membrane is an organic homologue of a silicon chip. This is what the circuit board in your computer or your smartphone or something. See all the tiny little components, all resistors, capacitors, and all kinds of components. So the cell is a self-powered, carbon-based organic microprocessor. So maybe you can start to appreciate what our logo for Two Bros Healing is all about. This is like, we're like circuit boards, and we're very electrical. The CPU, the central processing unit, is the cell membrane. The keyboard or data entry are the membrane receptors in the cell membrane. The hard disk or memory is the nucleus with DNA-coded software. The screen, or the data output, is the physical state of the cell. The data is transduced into biological behavior and effector proteins, like I just mentioned. ATP, adenosine triphosphate, the energy currency of the body, produced as a result of mitochondrial activity. We talked a lot about mitochondria and how they're the little engines in our cells and how they're affected by artificial light and electromagnetic fields, adversely. So the ATP is the output of that, and it's assembled by an enzyme which is run by a tiny rotating electrostatic motor. The spring in each ATP is cocked, if you will, by a little rotating molecular machine run by electrostatics. The reaction is reversible, and ATP can drive the motor, changing it into an electrostatic generator. So a typical human body contains about 10 to the 16th power, 10 with 16 zeros of these rotary electrostatic motors. Okay. That's the inside the mitochondrial inner membrane, these cytochromes. The fifth one is ATPase that spins like a little rotor.
So you can see how that would we would be, grossly affected by foreign electromagnetic fields.
Exactly.
Strong
Pulsed
electromagnetic fields. Yeah,
pulsed electromagnetic fields regulate virtually every cell function, including DNA synthesis, RNA synthesis, protein synthesis, cell division, cell differentiation, morphogenesis, and neuroendocrine regulation. These are all dependent on pulsed electromagnetic fields. The reactions that make up the electron transport system are a series of oxidation reduction reactions in which the electrons are passed from one electron carrier molecule to another until they ultimately are attached by oxygen atoms. This is, I was talking about the cytochromes, these 5 cytochromes. And if the cytochrome 4 has red light chromophores, 4 red light chromophores, that if you don't have infrared light, this part of the process doesn't work. And so you don't have ATP being produced, you don't have any energy. You just, that's why people usually when they come in to see us, put them on the table, especially the first time, they're always in a global weakness. All their muscles are weak. Everything we test, because their batteries are dead. They're not generating or storing electricity because they're not connected to the earth or to other, they're not in the sun, they're not getting electrons into the body, and they're not eating healthy diets. So once
they're not hydrated.
Right, and that's a result of the mitochondria not being functioning, because the mitochondria actually hydrate the cells. So the reactions that create the energy can't happen if these carriers aren't passing, the electron transport chain isn't passing those signals through. Biological behavior can be controlled by invisible energy forces, which include thought. A human is made of 100,000 different proteins, which are linear chains whose molecular links are comprised of amino acid molecules. Each of the 20 different amino acids has a unique shape. I started to talk about this. When linked together in a chain, the resulting proteins fold into elaborate three-dimensional wire sculptures, if you will. The protein sculpture's pattern is determined by the sequence of its amino acid links. The balancing of electromagnetic charges along the protein chains serve to control the final shape of the sculpture. So the unique shape of a protein sculpture is referred to as its conformation. And these are specific shapes that have to happen. When proteins chemically couple with other molecules, they change the distribution of electromagnetic charges in the protein. And the changes in charge cause the protein to change its shape. This could open and close a ion channel, for instance. Protein generates motion as it changes shape. Groups of interacting proteins that work together in carrying out a specific function are referred to as pathways. And the activities of specific protein pathways provide for digestion, excretion, respiration, reproduction, and all other physiologic functions employed by living organisms. all influenced by electrical activity. So it's not only if you don't have the right charge, these activities can't happen, but if you're exposed to external man-made fields, like a cell phone in your pocket, a Wi-Fi router, all the things that we harp on you guys all the time, uh, the electrical grid, all kinds of influences that affects these subtle activities inside our bodies in every cell. So high frequency voltage transients exist everywhere on electric power wiring today. These are spikes, transients that peak out. Does there somebody have a mic on? Oh, okay. Both inside and outside of the buildings, and these transients travel away from the wire if they're above 3,000 cycles per second. And they act like an antenna. So if you live in or work in or in close proximity to these, you're going to be getting bombarded with these transients. These should not be present on normal 60 hertz sine waves used in power distribution. If you had a nice clean electrical signal, sine wave, like we used to have, it doesn't have those transients, but all the digital electronics that are being used now add these the noise, if you will, dirty electricity to the line. Electric fields such as those emitted by power lines, cell phones and cell towers and home appliances, including television, have frequencies between 2 and 100 kilohertz, 2 and 100,000 cycles per second. In the radio frequency range, and can have profound biological effects. So these are potentially present on all wires carrying electricity and are an important component of ground currents returning to the substations, especially in rural areas. So that's something people don't think about. The electricity doesn't just go through the wires, it also goes through the ground, returning to the substation that supplies you with your power. So we're in the midst of an invisible and silent plague of pandemic proportions that has been woven into our everyday lives. Dirty electricity is in virtually every building, whether it's our homes, our schools, workplaces, or hospitals. These fields are potentially present on all wires carrying electricity and are important components of the ground currents again. All right, energy efficient appliances and equipment are amongst the culprits that create dirty electricity, especially your smart appliances. Many houses with solar panels have very high levels of dirty electricity coming from the inverter. It's creating the alternating electricity from the solar panels.
Go over real quick while you're there. We did an energy audit for some people recently and talk about the solar transmitter. Is it?
Oh, that was a yeah, that was like a router for the solar power system to send data, and where they had the transmitter was where it tied into the internet. So you could, with your smartphone, you could be away from home and you could look at the status of your solar power system remotely. So that sent that information into their office and picked it up and it transmitted, back and forth. And that was hidden and nobody knew it was there. And we found it with our meter. And it was off the scale. It was a really high signal.
It was a pretty nasty field. Yeah, we found 3 really bad ones, and these people were pretty good on everything else. They were clean and they cleaned up things. And I said, well, check it out. I want you to go through our house and office. And they were quite surprised that we found a few of those, but they were relieved because we, got that identified and able to deal with it, do something about it. But it's funny what you find.
So wind turbines, windmills, can also generate dirty electricity, which is then transferred along the grid. So you share the same electricity, the same dirty electricity as your neighbors, and anyone that's on that same substation that you are. Could be industrial, could be residential, but you share all the same dirty electricity. It comes through the neutral line.
Now there are devices, and we'll go over those in some other classes of different things to do. There are devices that you can purchase to block those, to help mitigate them.
So most people, even if they're exposed to levels and wavelengths that are literally killing them, remain unaware. This helps explain why the professional and office workers, like school teachers, have very high cancer incidence rates. This explains why indoor workers have higher malignant melanomas, and why melanoma in general can occur in parts of the body that are never exposed to sunlight.
Like
It
the
also-
eyes, right? We just talked to somebody the other day that it said.
Right. Well, the eyes are exposed to sunlight, but yeah, that's a new finding, melanoma in the eye.
Mhm.
But it's related to the blue artificial light, right? And melanopsin receptors. So it also explains why melanoma rates are increasing while the amount of sunshine reaching Earth is stable, or even decreasing due to air pollution. You know, the chemtrails are blocking the percentage of the sunlight. But people are still coming up with melanomas. So even when they do experience palpable sensations, the cause simply does not occur to people. Everyone living in areas of the world with electricity are being negatively affected. It's only a question of degree. What a tangled mess.
Those are some nasty ones there. I'd hate to try to work on that.
Really.
We're technicians. Oh man.
Electric workers and their children have a higher risk of brain tumors. The incidence of childhood leukemia is higher in children who live near power lines that carry high voltage. Dr. Sam Milham in 1982 was the first to link workers' exposure to electromagnetic fields with higher rates of leukemia. Lloyd Morgan, a brain tumor survivor and director of the Central Brain Tumor Registry of the United States, the Benign Brain Tumor Registries Amendment Act was introduced into the U.S. Congress. It became law in 2002. Takes people, it's like how many people have to be killed on a corner before they put a stop sign there. You know? Along with breast cancer, leukemia, and diseases of the central nervous system, brain tumors are among the diseases that are more prominent in this health issue. I know from personal experience, my father died of a brain tumor. He was an electrician, worked at Dow Chemical Company, worked around a lot of high voltage, you know, transformers and different things all over the plant. And yeah, he died of a brain tumor. So power line exposure has also been associated with an increased incidence of suicide. And then when you destroy the dopamine in your brain, you get depressed, you don't feel good. And then a lot of times people go to an MD and they'll get put on some kind of psych drug, antidepressant, or something like that, which makes you want to commit suicide or homicide. You know, but just without that even, it can also make you suicidal, make you depressed. Electromagnetic fields act as a cancer promoter. The ELF fields interact with the cell membrane and can affect hormones, calcium exchange, and tissue growth.
So these are extremely low frequencies, ELFs.
No, yeah, extremely low frequencies, right. Suppress the production of melatonin, also a cancer inhibitor by the pineal gland. Electromagnetic fields can be generated by spinning magnets, which is what steel-belted radial rotating tires are. People don't realize there's a layer of steel in each tire on your car. And when you have a moving conductor like that, it generates a magnetic field. And so those are impacting you, especially in the front when you're driving. But they're just more...
Could that give you symptoms while you're driving? We can experience, you know, tiredness or...
Sure. And then your feet would be closer to that, being closer to the wheels. And then the smaller the car is, the closer into to you that it would be. So
What are
Yeah.
the kind of tires like? What are the kind of tires that the Mini Coopers have? Don't they have one that you don't have to fill, or
Well, those are ones that
what
are
are they?
supposed to heal themselves, mend themselves if they get punctured. And
And do
I'm not sure
they
what
have
the,
steel belts in there?
well, they're either steel or fiberglass belted. Most of them are steel belted
Mhm.
nowadays. Right.
Okay, so it might be some interesting technology of tires, and if we can create a spin that may be healing, or with the
Hmm.
substance, there's some
Right.
room for some more.
Maybe find the right speed that you're not, creates the
Yeah,
right
the right frequency that you're like, cool, man. Like,
blender from 6 inches away emits between 30 and 100 milligauss. And a gauss is a measurement of magnetic field strength. So we're looking at milligauss, would be thousandths of a gauss. An electric can opener 6 inches away emits between 500 and 1500 milligauss.
So a
You can measure,
a smoothie maker may not be the best business to be in, right? You're like doing that all day.
right? Or a hair dryer,
Yeah.
hairdresser with the hair dryers all day. So, hair dryer 6 inches away emits between 1 and 700 milligauss. A ceiling fan 12 inches away emits between 3 and 50 milligauss. All this stuff that you don't think about. Some sources maintain that even 2 milligauss is enough to disrupt a person's biological function, and the maximum emission a person can safely absorb is only 1 milligauss.
Oh no.
Yeah, so this stuff is all, well, we go back here, there's 700, there's 500, 1500 milligauss. Right? Now these are not on all the time, fortunately. The fan would be, all night maybe or something, but
Uh-oh.
there's, this is thermograph of the body, of the head, before using a cell phone, and then 15 minutes of cell phone use. See the heat that was generated by the cell phone. And this is 2.45 gigahertz, the same frequency as your microwave oven. How do microwave ovens work? They heat the water in the food, right? That cooks the food. And our brains are 97% water. So it's heating that water in all the cells and all the neurons. Okay.
And your brain should be cool. Your head should be cooler than the rest of your body. Your brain is tremendous amount of heat. It should be cool, cooler than the rest of your body. And then look, when we put clothes on, we clothe ourselves. And if it's not hot, we have clothes here, but it's our heads that's, unless you're outside and there's, really strong winds or it's really cold, that is still left more open for the most part. So there's a lot more heat coming off of that organ.
Cumulative damage may result from subtle chronic exposures. Such electric fields form around any electric charge, according to numerous authorities, including those within your cells. There are an enormous number of studies showing radiofrequency microwave radiation to be harmful to human health. Thousands of studies conducted over the last 80 years have found a wide variety of bioeffects, including permanent DNA damage. In 1968, President Johnson, in his State of the Union address, promised to protect the American people from the electromagnetic field radiation emitted by TV sets and other electronic equipment. He subsequently signed into law the Radiation Control for Health and Safety Act. In 1971, President Nixon's own Radiation Management Advisory Panel warned him that the nation's entire population might be at risk, especially if future generations are considered. This is back in '71.
Wow.
We're starting to be concerned about this. This is before we had the people carrying microwave transmitters in their pockets and next to
Or
them.
any of that. Wow.
We didn't have the internet.
So had decent lighting and everything then.
Right. In 1995, President Clinton released a memorandum stating transmitter masts should not be sited on schools or near residential areas. Look what they're doing now with the 5G masts they're putting in, especially during the shutdown A lot of reports that they're putting them in the parking lots, disguised in the lighting poles that light the parking lots and stuff. And then often you're going to see cell phone towers right next to a school. And so a lot of good that memorandum did. In 2010, President Obama's own cancer advisory panel identified the risk to children and adolescents from wireless radiation as the most pressing problem. Thousands of studies link low-level wireless radio frequency radiation exposures to a long list of adverse biological effects, including DNA single and double-strand breaks, oxidative damage, disruption of cell metabolism, increased blood-brain barrier permeability, melatonin reduction, disruption of brain glucose metabolism, and generation of stress proteins. So the blood-brain barrier permeability is really important to understand because this normally filters out anything that the brain does not want in it. It lets glucose and some nutrients through, but blocks proteins and other compounds. But when you're using a cell phone, holding it next, or you're by a device that's putting out microwaves, like a Wi-Fi router or something like that, your blood-brain barrier opens for an hour and a half after you're done making your cell phone call. Anything in the blood goes into the brain, and then it causes an excitement of the immune cells in your brain called glial cells, and then they start to produce their immune cytokines, they're called. They're inflammatory. They create inflammation in the brain. And when you have an inflamed brain or brain on fire, then that can affect any part of your body, because your brain affects everything in the body neurologically. So that's important to understand. It also will open the placental barrier when mom's pregnant. The placental blood and mom's blood are separated by a membrane, and that opens up, and anything in mom's blood goes into the baby's blood that way also. So all these subtle effects that people don't think about. Melatonin reduction. You need melatonin for sleeping well at night. People don't sleep now at night. It's one of the biggest complaints we've had in our clinical practice the last 10 years or so. So, and then hypoglycemic effects, disruption of brain glucose. Your brain is the most sensitive organ to sugar, to blood sugar. And when you upset that, you can have feelings of impending doom. So the electromagnetic field radiation is emitted by all wireless products or devices, but none more so than the insidious smart meter, particularly when they're operational in what electric utilities called meshed grid networks. These would be like all different homes that are reporting information to a central point. They're distributed different ways. So the smart meter radio frequency emissions constitute an all new bizarre pattern, unlike the pattern of emissions from your cell phone or any other RF emitting device. To date, there have been no studies published on the effects of smart meter radiation on animals, plants, or humans. Fortunately, in Hernando County, where we live, they don't use smart meters on residential. I've seen them on
Businesses.
on commercial buildings, but fortunately not on, but they do in Pasco and Hillsborough counties around us. So there's no studies been published on the effects of these on animals, plants, or humans. Some research indicates that pulse radiation induces a greater biological effect than constant radiation. So when these pulse, they have these transients that affect us. So based on countless firsthand reports, it's clear that some people are vulnerable to serious ill effects. A smart meter is a device you cannot turn off or move, so your exposure to the source of radio frequencies is out of your control. The rate and intensity of the radio frequency radiation is also not under your control. And we're coming to learn it is not under the utility's control. Smart meters are unlike cell phones or Wi-Fi in their bizarre pattern of sharp spikes of radio frequency. At least 90% of the RF emitted by the smart meters is not transmitting your electrical usage data, but is part of the mesh network talking to itself, and includes a lot of redundant chatter between your meter and other meters. So this is going on. You're talking to other meters on other houses and stuff. The figures for radio frequency exposure from RF transmitting power meters given by utilities are time-averaged numbers, which hide the peak power of the smart meter and disguise the contiguous nature of the pulses. So they might take it over a 24-hour period, and then it looks like a very low amount. But when you put that all into an hour or two in the middle of the night, whatever, then it's really high, these transients.
Hey,
Much
Bobby,
higher than cell phones.
how can you tell if you have a smart meter? Like you
Well,
got your picture
sometimes
on
it will
there.
say right on the meter itself, like this is smart meter, and then there's a little port in the glass where you can plug into it that a regular meter doesn't have, an analog or a regular digital, not a smart meter, but a digital
Counter.
transmitting
Yeah.
meter.
Okay.
There's meters that aren't smart meters that transmit data, and they can drive down the street and they can ping it and they can read the data on your meter and bill you that way. That's not a smart meter. Smart meters are
Have
much
that port.
has a port in the glass where you can plug in, and it often will say smart meter right on it.
Okay.
But it'll have a digital readout. It doesn't have the analog wheel like the old ones did that
Right.
goes around.
And the last little bit of time that we have left today, we have to probably continue this the next time. I have people want to know a little bit about want me to show, if I can, the Orgonite Chargers, some of them that we have. And if you could
Okay.
say a little bit about what Orgonite is and how that might work, and I'll grab a few of the chargers and show them. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, Orgonite is a kind of a new development of energy medicine where you take polyester resin, which is an organic resin, it's water soluble, and you embed within it different semi-precious gemstones and metals. Usually it's piezoelectric, like quartz, things that will create a voltage when you put a pressure on it. And you mix these, and often is done in layers, and it creates like a capacitor effect. But they have a beneficial effect in protecting your body from the left-hand torsion field that's generated by microwave devices, especially. And these are adverse to the health of our cells. Our cells like a right-hand torsion field, and these devices put out the opposite, a left-hand torsion field. So when we use something called shungite, which is a carbon-based mineral, like diamonds or coal, it has a specific matrixing pattern in these geodesic spheres called buckyballs or fullerenes, like I was showing earlier. And this acts like a cosmic antenna kind of, and it somehow changes the torsion field or rotational field to a more beneficial one. And it negates the weakening effect of these devices on your body. That's why we make our pocket protectors. You can put right in your pocket. And I have one here that whoa, it's keying on it.
I'll show you one.
Okay.
I'll get one. Here's one.
So,
If you can see it, let me talk. I can show you here.
talk a little on
See
it.
it. There's one. This one is the torus pattern. This one is a flower of life pattern. We make them with the, like I said, shungite. This one has azomite in it. And we have something called our Merlin mix.
They have quartz sand, they have magnetite, they have shungite.
There's a different one that's
sand
got the,
mixed in.
I can see, there we go. That one's got the Sri Yantra on it.
These are embossed from the molds.
Yeah. And
So I also use 528 hertz that I vibrate them while they're curing. And it puts a cymatic pattern into the resin, just like it would if you're charging water or something, as it's curing, and it hardens that way with that pattern. And I've tested just the resin with and without. There's a marked difference when you imprint it with 528 versus not. So that adds a little
perk.
twist, little arm bar to the process, and increases the effect. So we make these in little pocket protectors that fit in your pocket, or devices you can, like this one. I don't know if this one shows up.
Yeah, you can see that. Well, do it again. Let me be quiet.
Okay, this one has the aqua aura and angel aura crystals, and then it's got a layer of quartz sand. This one doesn't have the shungite in it.
And then this one does. This is similar to the one he just said. This one has a copper coil in the center with the aqua aura and the angel aura, and then it has the quartz sand and the shungite in it. Let me show you.
These are like coasters that you can put your drink on and charge, or you can put your jewelry. You can charge your gemstones.
They're like that size.
Right.
Let me show you a
And we have
couple.
larger ones for charging 5-gallon water bottle, or a 1-gallon water bottle.
Let me show you this one. These are, we have the aqua aura in here, and then there's a magnet in the center, and then there's some different gemstones around, and then again that has the base. You can see the magnet in there.
Magnetic sphere.
Magnetic sphere, and then it
And
has
Metatron's cube pattern with the other gemstones.
and then it has you can see the quartz and the shungite in it. And let me show you a similar one. This one we put the little bit of the glitter on there to just move the energy around. And then that one has the quartz, the
Copper.
shungite, and the copper in it. And let me show you some of the dark ones. This one is just all the shungite. This one is just the shungite puck. It's a solid shungite with the flower of life pattern. Hope that comes through pretty good. And let me show you this one with shungite on the top. And you can see that pattern. And then the other side, we have the quartz, and then we put the aqua auras in those sacred geometric patterns. And then we might get, just depends on availability of the different things that we can get. This is a larger, we just made it thicker. And then these are magnetic pieces that we put in those sacred geometric patterns. And if we can use the copper coil, we do that as well. So those are the ones that we like to make, and they're variations of the same thing, but just a little bit different.
If you look over Carrie's right shoulder, you'll see a pyramid. That's another
That one's really cool.
pattern we made.
Yeah, this one is really cool. So this one has got the shungite on the bottom, and it has the copper coils in there, and then it has this
Octahedron magnet.
octahedron. It's a magnet. A magnetic, those are all magnetic inside there that are just holding that shape, and then inside is this is a amethyst sphere inside of that. So this one is a really cool one. This is about the size of my hand, maybe 5 or 6 inches in diameter, the pyramid. And then
So
we can
that's a
also do another.
generator that transmits out into a room, wherever you put it.
Yeah, so those are some Orgonite pieces that are not only pretty and nice to look at, candy for the eyes, but they actually have purpose too. So, all right, thank you
To the
all.
bottom of the hour.
Yeah, thank you for coming for our group. Please share this link, private messages if you need any more information, and we will be covering a little bit more on vibrational medicine. Want to get vibrational energy, get through this, and then go off into some more topics. And if you have some more questions about that, you can put questions in the chat, and then also about some other topics that you may be interested in. We had to mention that our video from last week, we finished editing it, we put it up, and it was, you know, about the situation in the world right now, and it was taken down, of course, from YouTube. So we'll be putting that on, we'll be putting it on Brighteon, BRIGHTEON, and that way we can still have that up there. And there's a lot of things that are getting banned, but you know you're over the target when you get those things. So there's still no way we can stop information, because when an idea is ready, you know, it opens up and you can't stop it once its time has come.
Mm-hmm. Take the most slack when you're right over the target.
Yeah. So thank you all. Please help spread the word, share this information. You know, we're all here together, and, you know, be a part of that frequency. And again, if you feel like you're not doing enough or you can't do something on a physical, you can always go within and you raise your own vibration and your own frequency. And that's very, very powerful. So thank you for coming, and we'll see you next week.
Keep the light shining.
Namaste.